So we often hear these three terms kind of floating around, right? Sustainability, circular economy, open innovation.
Yeah, they're everywhere. In talks, policies, company plans.
Exactly. Each one gets a lot of attention on its own. But what's interesting, and maybe not talked about enough, is how rarely you see them really properly connected.
That's true. They often feel like separate conversations.
Which is exactly why this article caught our attention. It's called Open Innovation for Circular and Sustainable Business Models, Case Evidence from the Bioeconomy Sector.
Yes, by Dorrego Vieira and Urbanotti, Hansen, Lazzarotti. Good piece. Published in Innovation Organization and Management.
Right. And just quickly, for anyone less familiar, the circular economy, it's essentially about keeping resources in use as long as possible.
Yeah, getting the most value while they're circulating and then, recovering and regenerating things at the end of life, not just use and toss.
Got it. So our deep dive today is really about exploring how companies, specifically in this forest-based bioeconomy sector, are using open innovation.
To actually build those circular and sustainable business models.
Exactly. And honestly, with the environmental challenges, the climate situation, it feels like a really vital conversation to have right now. So how do these ideas link up in practice?
Well, to really get that connection, I think we first need to quickly define the bioeconomy itself.
Okay.
At its core, it's an economy built on renewable biological resources. So think forestry, agriculture, biotech, sectors like that.
Things that grow.
Exactly. So they're kind of inherently linked to sustainability because the basic materials can be renewed and the systems are part of, well, natural cycles.
Makes sense.
And what's fascinating here, especially with forest-based businesses, is they don't just use resources, they're actively managing them, renewing them.
So they're stewards in a way.
Precisely, which puts them right at the forefront of sustainability efforts. They're really positioned to lead, potentially.
Okay, but even with that natural alignment you mentioned, moving to being truly circular and sustainable, that can't be simple.
Oh, definitely not. And the article really emphasizes this. It takes, a constant flow of new ideas, completely new ways of operating.
Collaborations, right?
Huge collaboration, and using new technologies smartly. The old ways just aren't enough anymore.
So, okay, these are complex hurdles. How do companies actually get over them? Is this where open innovation fits in?
That's exactly it. Open innovation, or OI. It's basically about looking outside your own walls.
Right. Engaging with external groups.
Yeah, universities, communities, customers, suppliers, maybe even competitors sometimes.
Yeah.
The goal is to bring in outside knowledge and really speed up innovation.
And the article connects this specifically to bioeconomy firms.
It does. Dorrego Vieira and the team really highlight how crucial OI is for them, partly because their value chains can be so complex.
Okay.
And it's not just about grabbing a few new ideas. It's more about using those outside inputs to actively shape and reshape their sustainability strategies.
So sustainability isn't a fixed destination.
Exactly. That's a key point. It's dynamic. It evolves based on collaboration, new knowledge, what the market wants.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, innovation and sustainability aren't separate tracks.
No, they're deeply intertwined. They actually reinforce each other. You need innovation for sustainability, and sustainable thinking can drive innovation. They're essential partners.
That idea of them reinforcing each other, that's powerful. But, companies often struggle with the short-term costs of doing sustainable things versus maybe longer-term innovation payoffs. Did the article touch on how these firms handled that tension?
That's a really practical question. And yes, the article doesn't ignore those challenges, but what it shows is that these specific firms, the ones they studied,
Case studies.
right, they seem to view the long-term strategic gain as outweighing those initial difficulties. What really comes through from their examples is just how adaptable they were.
Adaptable how?
They understood that being truly open wasn't just about idea collection. It was about weaving those external insights into a strategy that could actually change and evolve. A living strategy, almost.
And I found that really compelling, too, how the article went beyond just theory. It gave insights from 4 actual forest-based bioeconomy companies, showing how OI worked on the ground.
Yeah, the case evidence is strong.
And one thing that jumped out, for instance, was what they call flexible sustainability approaches. They noticed these companies weren't just sticking rigidly to one plan. They were constantly tweaking things, mixing different strategies.
Based on new information, market shifts, environmental changes.
Exactly. And what's insightful there is that this flexibility isn't just like a nice to have. The article suggests it's almost a requirement.
Because the landscape keeps changing.
Right. Rigid plans break. Climate science evolves. Market demands shift. These companies figured out that adapting, even changing their core sustainability approach sometimes, was the only way to stay effective. Like you said, a living organism adapting.
And building on that flexibility, the research also really emphasized strong external collaboration. These companies didn't just dabble in partnerships, they really embraced them as fundamental to how they innovated.
So going beyond their own R&D labs.
Way beyond.
Yeah.
Actively working with universities, research centers, local communities, even international partners. And these weren't just simple deals like sharing some resources.
They're involved.
Yeah, often they became quite sophisticated long-term innovation projects. It really hammers home that for these big systemic challenges in the bioeconomy, you pretty much have to bring in outside expertise. It's not optional.
And the third point really brings it into the present day. Digitalization, making a difference.
Ah, yes. The tech angle.
The article stresses how digital tools aren't just making things more efficient, but are fundamentally boosting their innovation power.
Like what kind of tools?
Things like big data analytics, cloud computing, AI algorithms, collaborative digital platforms.
Stuff that makes sharing and analyzing information much easier.
Exactly. It's kind of amazing to think how much harder this open collaboration and data analysis would have been just, say, 10 years ago.
True, it's transformed things.
These technologies really streamline collaboration, make knowledge exchange richer, and just speed up the whole innovation process. Digital is definitely a game changer here.
No doubt.
So, okay, if you're listening to this, maybe you're a manager, a business leader, perhaps a policymaker working on bioeconomy or sustainability. What does this research actually mean for you? What are the takeaways?
Well, I think the first really crucial takeaway is stay flexible.
Right. Don't carve those plans in stone.
Exactly. The research is pretty clear. Rigid sustainability plans often fail. You need a strategy that can evolve, adapt to new information, new conditions. It's about agility, not just in making products, but in your whole strategic approach to being sustainable.
Okay, flexibility first. What second?
Second, really encourage collaboration. It sounds obvious, maybe, but creating environments where open innovation can actually flourish is key.
How do you do that?
Well, things like supporting cross-sector partnerships, setting up platforms for sharing knowledge, maybe creating incentives for collaboration. The study suggests many of the real breakthroughs.
The big innovations.
Yeah, they often come from these joint efforts, not just from one company working alone in-house. It's about tapping into the whole ecosystem's brain power,
That makes sense. Leverage the collective.
Okay.
And third,
Invest in digital solutions, thinking strategically about digital tech. It's not just about making operations smoother.
it's core to sustainable innovation.
Absolutely. Digital tools help you make faster decisions, boost efficiency, and fundamentally strengthen your ability to manage and push sustainability efforts forward right across the complex value chains we talked about.
So flexibility, collaboration, digital investment, that seems pretty clear. What Dorrego Vera and his colleagues really drive home in this article is just how vital that collaboration piece is for genuine sustainability.
Yeah, it comes through strongly.
Companies, they rarely have all the answers internally, especially for complex stuff like sustainability and the circular economy.
It's too multifaceted.
Right. So open innovation isn't just some trendy buzzword here. It's really presented as a strategic necessity. It lets businesses tap into that collective knowledge, share resources, build stronger networks.
And that really amplifies their ability to innovate and be effective.
Definitely.
And, the insights here, they aren't just academic points. They feel like practical advice, a real strategic direction.
Yeah.
It does make you think. Maybe the key to tackling our biggest environmental challenges isn't solely about individual companies or even countries trying harder on their own.
But more about our collective ability.
Exactly. Our collective ability to collaborate, to adapt, to bring together all these different ideas and solutions, which I suppose leads to a final thought for you, the listener. What complex challenge are you wrestling with right now in your work or your field that could potentially be transformed if you really opened the doors to external collaboration and started integrating diverse perspectives and ideas?